First, to find the directions, you go to Content in your iLearn course, and then it's the second link down, Getting Your Computer Set Up, and then here's the PDF document that you can go by. You can Okay, the first step is going to be to install a compiler. And so I'm going to open up the directions, which looks like this. And the compiler that we're going to install is MinGW. So in the directions, you will see the link, https://winlibs.com. And you're going to scroll down on this page until you get to Release Versions, UCRT Runtime. And then these top two bullets are the latest releases of MinGW. I'm going to select the one that says with MCF threads. Really, either one of these versions is okay. But what you'll want to do is do the Win64 version, the zip archive. And so I'm going to click on zip archive under GCC 13.2.0 with MCF threads, Win64. So I just clicked on the link. It's going to download the zip archive. And then I'm going to open up my downloads. And here it is. Here's the zip file. So now I want to extract this file. So I'm going to right click on it and go to Extract All. But I want to select a different folder that these files will be extracted to. I'm going to click Browse in order to choose the folder, and I just want it directly under the C drive. So I just selected C and made sure under Folder it says C, and then Select Folder. Then I'm going to click Extract. There are 11,496 items that I am copying or downloading, unzipping from this file. And so this could take a little bit of time. All right, finally it's extracted, and I had selected for it to open the file after it extracted. So you see that we are in my C drive, and I now have a folder here called MinGW64. And I'm going to double click on that folder. There's a folder called bin inside of this folder, and this is where the executable file is that is our compiler that we're going to use. So what a compiler does is it takes the code that you write and it changes it into computer language, into computer code, so that your instructions, which once you learn the C++ language, your instructions will make sense to you, but it won't make sense to the computer until it goes through the compiler. So our compiler file here is called g++.exe. Now, in order to be able to use this executable file from any location on your computer, you have to set up what's called an environmental path or environment variable. And so in order to do that, we need the path of where this file exists. So in order to copy the path, you want to go up here where it says your C drive, then MinGW64, then bin, and click somewhere to the right of the word bin, but not on top of the word bin. And that will highlight the path. And so now I want to copy it, and I'm going to do that with Control C. So I've just copied that. And now I want to set up an environment variable that contains this path. In order to set up environment variables on your computer, you have to go into your computer settings. And so where I have my Windows search bar here, I'm going to type in settings and open up my computer settings. And then I'm going to find the setting. Well, I didn't mean to make that small. There we go. I'm going to find the setting by typing in environment. Now you're going to have a couple of options here. Either edit the system environment variables or edit environment variables for your account. You want to edit the system environment variables. And so make sure you select that option. And it brings up the system properties window. And on this window, it's in the Advanced tab that you see at the bottom, Environment Variables. You're going to click on that button. And then you have two different sets of environment variables. You have your user variables, and then you have your system variables. You're going to want to change the path, or not change it, but add to the path of your system variables. So you're going to click on Path under System Variables, and then click Edit. So these are all the paths that are currently being used by your system. You might have different ones than I do. And I see that I've already added this path. I'm going to delete it and pretend that it isn't there. So what you're going to do, this is what yours is going to look like, something like this. And you're going to click on New and then paste the path that you just copied. So that's Control V to paste. And then you'll click OK because it added this path. Then click OK again. Then click OK in the system properties if it's still open, or that path exists between any place on your computer and that G++ executable or R compiler. Okay, installation of VS Code. Here is our link that we want, and we're going to download. It says either the 32-bit or 64-bit. I'm going to download the 64-bit Windows User Installer version of Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to click on the web address. And since I have a Windows machine, I'm going to download the Windows version. User Installer. So here's the words User Installer, and I want to do 64-bit. Okay, so it is now downloading into my Downloads folder. So I just have to wait a few minutes. Depending on how fast your internet is, this may take a little bit longer time or shorter time. I'm done with this zip file because I've already installed MinGW, so I'm going to delete that out of my downloads. And it looks like VS Code has finished. And so this is an installer. I can double click on it. And I'm going to accept the agreement, click Next. I am okay with its default location, which is in App Data, Local Programs, Microsoft VS Code. I'm fine with that, so I'm going to click Next. And the start menu will have a Visual Studio Code link so that I can get to the program. So next, I like to create a desktop icon, and I also like to make sure this add to path is selected. Click these as well so I can open up programs with VS Code easily. All right, and then I'm going to install. While this is installing, I'm going to close out this window, which I won't need anymore. Completing the Visual Studio Code setup wizard, and I can launch Visual Studio Code, which I am going to do because there's a couple more steps we need to accomplish. So I'm going to click Finish, and then clicking on Extensions, and you would type up in the top, you would type C++ and hit Enter, and then all the extensions that have to do with C++ will appear, and you're going to want this one. Make sure it says it's from Microsoft.com, and C, C++, IntelliSense, debugging, code browsing. So you'll install that one. And then there's also this C, C++ extension pack, which you may want. So I would install that one as well. And then you may also want this C, C++ themes. Anything that's created by Microsoft.com is going to be a safe extension for C++. And so you can, well, it looks like I already had this installed, but this helps you to set a color theme if you want. I usually use light mode because for teaching it shows up better, but most students prefer the dark modes, so which you can select one of those. Okay, so now we have our extensions installed. Let's look at our document of what the next steps are. So we've installed VS Code and made sure we installed the main extension, which is IntelliSense debugging and code browsing. Really, that's the only one you absolutely have to use VS Code as your text editor for C++. And so this VS Code will do a lot more than just, it's a lot more than just a text editor. It's called an IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. But for right now, we're just going to be using it as a text editor, meaning we're just going to be writing our code in VS Code. And so we're going to test the installation by creating what's called a workspace in VS Code. So I'm going to open VS Code, and I'm going to create a folder called Projects. And then inside of Projects, I'm going to create a subfolder called Hello World. And so these steps I would be doing inside of File Explorer. So I would decide where I want these files to reside, and then I would create those folders. Now there's another way to do this, is I can do it all through the command prompt, and I highly recommend you get used to the command prompt. So I'm going to show you that way of going about this. So I'm going to go to Desktop, and I have a file just for this class. So Fall 2023, CSC 1300. And I'm going to create a new folder called VS Code. And this is where I'm going to put all my VS Code, all my programs. I'm going to double click on this folder. This is where I want to save everything. Now to open the command prompt, I'm going to click up here where this path is, similar to what I did earlier, and type CMD. And that's going to bring up the command prompt. And the cool thing about this is that it's going to bring up the command prompt in this particular path. So I am in this VS Code folder. And now I'm going to follow the directions. I'm going to put the directions on the left side of how to create a folder called projects. So MKDIR stands for make directory, or basically make a folder. So I will type that MKDIR, and I want to name the folder projects. Now, I'm currently still in the VS Code folder, but there's now a folder called projects within this. And you can see that by typing in DIR, which stands for directory. So if I type DIR, it's going to show me everything in this current directory, and you see projects is here. Now, if I want to get into this folder, I would do CD, which stands for change directory. You see that here. And then you type in the name of the directory or folder that you're trying to get into. So CD space projects. And it has to be a folder that's directly the child of the current folder that you're in. And now it says to make another directory called Hello World underneath this projects folder. So mkdir, or make directory, called Hello World. And I hit enter. And then in order to enter into that folder, I'm going to change directories into Hello World. So CD space Hello World. So now I've created this folder. The next step is to actually open up VS Code to where it is open in this folder. And really all you have to do is type code space dot. And what this is going to do is it says open VS Code in this current directory. That's what that dot means, in this current directory. So I hit enter, and it's asking me if I trust the authors of the files in this folder. Well, I am the author, so I'm going to say yes. I click that yes, and then it opens. So VS Code is now open. Remember, yours might be different. If you use dark theme, it's going to be dark. We don't need to see this welcome message. I'm just going to close it out. On the left, we're inside of this file explorer. To get rid of this view, you just click on it again, but then click on it again to make it appear again. And you see that we're in that Hello World folder that the directory that I just created. Now we need to create a source file. A source file is where you're going to write your code. And so you click on the little document with the plus, and that means that's a new file icon. If I wanted another folder underneath this Hello World folder, I could do that within VS Code as well by clicking on the new folder icon. I just want a new file. And I'm going to call this, actually, let's look at what the direction said. I think it's hello world.cpp. Yes, so we're going to create hello world.cpp. So click on that, hello world.cpp. So you just type it in right there. And you notice the little icon to the left, it says, hey, I recognize this as a CPP file. And now I'm just going to type out this code exactly how I see it in my instruction document. Oops, there we go. And so pound include IOStream. I do highly recommend you typing it and not copying and pasting it, because if you copy and paste it, there are some hidden characters, hidden special characters within this PDF that will copy over here, and it will not compile. So you do have to, on most machines, you have to type it out. Namespace std semicolon. Don't forget those semicolons. Int space main beginning ending parenthesis, hit enter. beginning curly brace, and it automatically created an ending curly brace. That's okay. I'm just going to hit enter to make it go down. And it automatically indented my cursor, which is good. That's what I want. And then I'm going to type these 3 lines inside the curly braces, which is cout, 2 less than signs, quote. Notice it created that last quote for me automatically. Hello, world, exclamation point. The end quote is already there, so I don't want to type it again. Semicolon, hit enter, cout, less than, space, end, L. That's a lowercase l, not a 1. That stands for inline, semicolon, next line, return, space, 0, semicolon. And now you see this black dot, that means that this file is not saved. So I'm going to hit Control S, and that dot disappears and the X is there. That means that this is saved. So I now have written a complete program. And so the very last step is to actually try to compile and run this program. So what I'm going to do is open up File Explorer. And remember, I created this VS Code folder, and then I used the command prompt to create this projects folder and then the Hello World folder. And here's my source file. Once you're to the folder where you can actually see your source file, then you're in the right spot. You'll click up here where the breadcrumb trail is, or the path, to the right of the path so that it highlights the whole path. And then I'm going to actually get rid of the path by hitting backspace. And then I'm going to type CMD. And that stands for command prompt. I'm going to hit enter. This is the second time I've done that so that I can open up the command prompt directly into this folder, into this Hello World folder. And if I do dir, which stands for directory, I can see everything in this folder. And I can see my source file. Source files end in .cpp, helloworld.cpp. So there's my program. So now I'm ready to test out if I can actually compile this program. So these directions, remember, is in your getting your computer set up, but I just want to show you where that's at here, because the next line, you will eventually memorize this. The sooner you memorize it, the better. Here it is. But this is your command to use that compiler. Remember, I said it was called g++.exe. So notice what it starts with, G++. So I'm going to actually type this exact line in the compiler. And what this does is this says compile my program. This is my source file. It's called helloworld.cpp. And create an executable output file. That's a -O for output. And name that output file Hello World. Now I could have named it anything I wanted to. So G++ space source file, which is helloworld.cpp, space -O space, and then whatever I want to name my executable file, which I named it Hello World. I named it the same thing. And I hit enter. If your prompt shows back up to show you what directory you're in, that's a good thing. That means that your program compiled without any errors. And if I do dir, you can now see that there's not only helloworld.cpp, but there's also helloworld.exe. So I've now compiled the program and created an executable file. Last step is to run the program. And I do that by just typing in the executable file name. So hello world is the name of that. And I hit enter. All this program does is prints out hello world to the screen. But it worked. Now, you may come across an error, and it could be just an error in the code that you wrote. But if you see, I'm trying to find where it shows it. Right here. If you see this error right here that says G++ is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program, or batch file. If you see that, it is a problem. And that either means that you did not install MinGW, meaning that you do not, in your C drive, you do not have this MinGW folder with the bin folder with G++ in it. So that's one possible problem. The other possible problem, which is actually more common, is that you didn't set up your environment variable or you didn't set it up correctly. And remember, to check that, you go to Settings, you go to your Environment, System Environment Variables, you click on Environment Variables, you can either double click on Path or click Path and Edit, and then make sure you see C:/ /MinGW64 \bin, and that should be where your g++.exe file is located. Those are the two most common issues with going through this process. All right, so now you have your program or your computer completely set up for 1300 and you're ready to write programs.